All right, so I'm going to go through every single question on this review. Just like the other ones on the review, they usually go a little bit quicker. I will pause this a little bit to start filling things in for you. But you can skip the video. If you need any help, just send me a message. I probably will be around my phone for most of the night. But obviously, the longer you wait for any messages, the least likely it is for me to answer. So let's just get started. So for this one's creating a dot plot. Well, first, before we do anything, you have to know what a dot plot is. A dot plot is where you have your number line and you put your points on it. And it's kind of like your bar graph, but you just represent how many you have by these dots. And we try to keep them all the same height so that 1s, 2s, 3s are all the same height, so we can just see definitively when we look which one is which one has the most. If we aren't putting uniform with our 1, 2, 3, and 4, well, the highest might not necessarily mean the highest, right? So when we look here, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify what is our lowest point and what is our largest point. Our lowest is 12 and our largest is 19. So when we have a small range of numbers like this, that means we can use a dot plot to represent this. So we are going to first create our number line. You would want to, let me just redraw this, because on your test, if you want this to be perfect, you should use a straight edge. Wouldn't take off points if you don't, but I'm just going to use a straight edge here just to let me redraw that one more time, regardless of how this turns out. Okay. All right, so then I have numbers 12 to 19. So it's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So 12, let me pause this. All right, and now we go ahead and we fill in each one with our dots. That's why it's called a dot plot. So I'm going to go through and count my 12s. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. So now I will fill them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, then I'm going to go for my 13s. 1. I have 1. So I try to keep it the same height as the first one with the 12. So there's my 1. 14. 1, 2, 3. So it'll be 1, 2, 3. All right, now I'm going to pause this and fill in the rest, but it's going to be the same way for 15 through 19. All right, so I filled in the rest of my dot plot, and if you see, my 1s are all pretty much the same height, my 2s, my 3s, and so on. All right, you don't have to be perfect with it, but you should try and be as much as you can, because you don't want it to look like this 19 because you put your second one all the way up here that it's your largest when really it's not. All right, so you do want to be as close as you can. I'm not going to get a ruler out and measure them, but if it's something like this where they're pretty close, like this is all the same height, essentially, then it'll be fine for you. As far as the shape is concerned, because it says describe its shape, here there really is not a definitive shape, but we never went over no shape, or we never went over different types of shapes besides skewed right or positively skewed, skewed left or negatively skewed, or normal. This one's not normal or symmetric. It's not normal or symmetric. Since here you see it takes, or we have a little bit more of a tail here because this one is a little bit higher. If you said skewed right or positively skewed, I would accept it for this one. However, really it should be that there's no shape or there's no skew to this, but we haven't really gone through much more of the shapes to really talk about this in full detail. So if you said skewed right or positively skewed, I would give you credit for it. I don't really necessarily think it's the most accurate shape description for this stuff. All right, but that's it for a dot plot. You would just have to plot the points as a point, as each number as a dot, and then describe its shape. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, the next one, you'll be given a stem and leaf plot or stem and leaf graph, and you have to answer some questions about it. The main thing is identify the key. The key tells us what they represent. So when it says 1-3 equals 13, that means this 1 and this 3 means it is 13, not 1.3 or not 130. It's telling us it is 13. So the key is important. So that way you know how to label or talk about each one of these. All right, so it says, at an outpatient testing center, the stem and leaf plot for the number of cardiograms performed each day for the 20 days is shown below. Use the data given to answer the following questions. What is the least number of cardiograms performed in a given day? Well, our smallest stem is 0, and then that has a smallest leaf of 2. So since our key tells us that the stem is a tens and our leaf is a ones, that means it's 0, 2, or you can just say 2. So the least amount of cardiograms performed on a given day is 2. All right, then what is the most number of cardiograms performed? Well, the largest stem is 5. The largest leaf of that stem 5 is 7. So that means there are 57 cardiograms performed in one day. That's the most. All right, what is the average number performed? So we know we have 20. So we know that this is going to eventually be divided by 20. So you can add these up. You will do 2 plus 13 plus 14 because we're going 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 0, so plus 20, plus 2 and 3, so plus 23, plus 25. And you can do this for all of these. And then you can divide it by 20, and that will give you an answer of 33.05. So you can do it by hand, or you can use your calculator. Now, if you're not sure how to use a calculator, I put a video online. Watch that. I do think the calculator will be easier, because I think it's quicker. You don't have to worry about adding all these up. It's just the calculator does it all for you. So I just think it's a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. This test is a little bit long, like I've been saying, but if you're using a graphing calculator, there's no doubt that you'll finish with plenty of time to spare. If you're not, you will need to move quickly so that way you finish in time in the 55 minutes that you'll be given. All right, so you can do the average in one of the two ways. I don't really care which way you do it. You can add them all up, or you can use your calculator. Both of them is perfectly fine. If you're unsure about the calculator, please watch the other video I just made and upload it as well. All right, so then the next thing is, what percentage of days had more than 44 cardiograms? Well, percentage, we know we have 20 total, so we need to figure out how many had more than 20 or 44 cardiograms and divide it by 20. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of the 20 were more than 44 cardiograms, so that's 0.2. And if we want it in a percentage, you have to times it by 100. So that is 20%. So 20% of the days had more than 44 cardiograms performed. Right now, we can also ask you different questions on this. It's not just these 4 that you will see. We can talk about the 5-number summary, the min, the max, the Q1, the Q3, and the median. We can talk about find the average like we did. We can say find the mode. We can say find the median. We can do anything for this type of data here. So just make sure that you're not just thinking that these are the only types of questions that can appear when you're talking about stem and leaf. It's just different types that I'm giving you, since we cover every other kind that you can see throughout this review. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, here I changed this from the worksheet that was given to you because this is the way it will appear in your test, where it's 3 to less than 46. So the way I gave it to you on your review worksheet, I took it from a statistics book. In the statistics book, you will learn a different way of graphing frequency histograms, but you didn't learn that just yet. So that's why we have to change it a little bit from what I had on your worksheet. But this is the way that it appears. So this first one goes from 3 to less than 46. So it means it goes all the way from 3 to 45.99. Right? So it just does not include 46. So we need to go through and count up how many we have. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's not including 46, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So our frequency is the total number we had appear between this class limit. So we had 19 appear between 3 and 46. Right? Then we will do it for the next one, up to 89. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So once again, this one's also 19. All right, I'm going to pause this and fill this in, but you will just go ahead and fill in the frequency for all of the different class limits. All right, so I filled in the rest of the frequency, and now I need to create my frequency histogram. All right, so what you need to do, and I didn't really show you this on your answer key, but you need to make sure that you're labeling these. All right, so we will then name the histogram. Let me do this a little bit differently. All right, we will then name the histogram. It's talking about the number of counties, divisions, or parishes for each 50 states is given below. So you would name this as the number of counties, parishes, or divisions. All right, then here, actually, this is the name of our y-axis, so this is what we should be putting. I'm sorry. This is our label of our x-axis, so it's the number of counties, divisions, or parishes. So that is the label of our x-axis. And then our y-axis is our frequency, the number of times that it has occurred. So when you do this, you're going to make sure that you label our lowest class limit, so 3, and then you need to make sure you label each one of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we fill them in. It'll be 46, 89, 132, 175, 218, and 261. So all of those need to be our x. And then we need to make sure we have enough for our frequency. So I'm going to count in 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20. You can count in any ways you want for these. Since I knew I had enough to do 4 tick marks, I just count it in 5s. Right, then we're going to go ahead and fill it in. So between 3 and 46, we had 19. So between 3 and 46, we had almost 20, but 19. Right, then between 46 and 89, we also had 19. So the one very next to it, we just need to just draw this connecting it. And then the next one we had between 89 and 132, we had 10. So I will then go to 10. Color this in here. The next one we had between 132 and 175, we had 1. So 1 would approximately be right there. And then we don't have anything for this 0. So then the last one is this 1 here and this last one. So it'll also be the same way. Go ahead and color that in. And then it says describe the shape. So there's our frequency histogram, our shape. If you see, it's going to be skewed right or positively skewed. Because you see that we have this tail to the right. The bulk of our information is over here to the left. And then our information takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more spread out down here. We have this tail going on down at the end. So that means that it is going to be positively skewed or skewed to the right. Either one would be acceptable as an answer. Right? So that's all you need to do for a frequency histogram. First, you finish your table. You get this part. This will be given to you. Then you just need to go ahead and fill this in. You need to label your axes. And then you go ahead and draw your frequency histogram. There should not be, or there is not, space in between any bar graphs. There's a space here because there's a 0 as our frequency. If there wasn't a 0 and it was something up here, there would be no space between them. So make sure there's no space with your frequency histograms. All right, let's move on to the next question, number 4. All right, so for this one, you have multiple questions. So I'm going to just go ahead and rewrite these as real cheese. So we need to find our minimum, our Q1, our median, our Q3, and our maximum. And then we also need to do that for cheese substitute. All right, so I don't care how you do this. I think it's actually beneficial, though, if you use your calculator because it'll be quicker. But you just need to go ahead and find your 5-number summary. So if you're going to do this by hand, the first thing that you have to do is you need to go ahead and list these in order. So it will be 40, 45. I'm going to do this first one in by hand, and then the others I'm just going to type in what I got on my calculator. 90, 180, 220, 240, 310, and 420. All right, so then to go ahead and to find our median for this, well, we have 8 numbers. So 8 divided by 2 gives us a whole number of 4. So that means we need our 4th digit and the digit after that. So we need to average them together for our median. Well, 180 plus 220 divided by 2 is 200. So we know our median is 200. So remember, this now breaks our groups into 2 separate groups. We have this group here below the median, and then we have this group here above the median. In order to find our Q1 or our Q3, we need to take the median of each of those ranges. So here we have 4 digits. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that means we need to take the second and the third number. We need to add them together and divide it by 2. Right? That gives us a Q1 of 67.5. Right? Then, in order to find our Q3, we need to take the average of these two numbers. So 240 plus 310 divided by 2, and that will give us a Q3 of 275. The minimum and the maximum value are very easy. It's just the lowest value and the maximum value. So that is our 5-digit summary. Did not mean to write a 5 there. Our 5-digit summary for the real cheese and the amount of sodium content that it contains. All right, then you'll need to do the same thing for the cheese substitute. These are 2 different data sets that we're looking at here, but we're comparing them ultimately at the end. But I'm not going to do this by hand because I just showed you how to do the other one by hand. I'm just going to fill this in based on what I got in my calculator. So our median is 265. Our Q1 is equal to 215. Our minimum is equal to 130. Our Q3 is equal to 300. And our maximum is equal to 340. All right. It says make a box plot. I'm going to do that second. And then it also says find an IQR. I didn't put this in your answer key. So your IQR is equal to your Q3 minus your Q1. So your IQR for this one is equal to 275 minus 67.5. And 275 minus 67.5 is equal to 207.5. So the IQR of our real cheese is 207.5. For this one, we will do Q3 minus Q1, which is then going to give me 300 minus 215, which is then equal to 85. So the interquartile range is 85. So the smaller the range, it means that the most of our data is kind of bunched up here, like it is around, the range is only 85 for 50% of our data, where this one is way more spread out. This means that our box is going to be wider, it's going to be way more spread out. Right? Then it asks us to plot both box plots on the same number line and describe the shape. So I'm going to go ahead and first start with my number line. I see that my lowest number I need to put is 40, and my highest number is 420. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and see if I can count by 50s on here. So this will be 0, this will be 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, and 450. All right, let me pause this so I can fill them in. All right, now we need to create the box plot. And since this one I did most of this in black, I'm just going to draw this box plot in black. So I'm going to plot all of these points in my number line. So 40 will be approximately here. 67.5 will maybe be approximately right here. Then we have 200 for a median. So 200 will be all the way out here. 275 for our Q3, so that will be right in the middle. And 420 for our maximum, so that should be right about here. After you plot these 5 points, the 3 in the middle, you will draw a box connecting the first and the third. So our interquartile range gets connected through a box. Right? And then we will draw a line going through our median, so it gives us our box here. And then we draw a line connecting the furthest points out. So it's box and whisker or box plot is acceptable for a name for this. Right? Then the other one I'm going to do in green. Our minimum value is 130, so 130 is right here. That might be a little bit more to the right there. I'm not going to measure these or say that you're off by a centimeter. It's fine if you're just guesstimating, but just try to guesstimate as accurate as you can. So there's 215, and 265 is right after that. 300, nice and easy. And then 340, so right before the 350. Right, then the 3 numbers in the middle, we will connect our box. Then we draw a line going down our median, and then we connect the furthest points. So there's our box and whiskers. So it says draw them on the same number line, and that's what we did here. And then it says describe the shape. Well, this one, it is clearly closer to the right-hand side, so this means it is skewed left or negatively skewed. Either one would be acceptable. Right here, it may be closer to the right simply because I drew these number lines. So if you're not sure if this is where it should be because it's kind of in the middle, if you look at the difference here, the difference between these two, Q3 and median, is 35, and the difference between these two is 50. So it does mean that it's slightly closer to here. So if you said skewed left or negatively skewed, I would give you full credit for that. But if you also said symmetric, because it is pretty close to being directly in the middle, I would also give you credit for that. All right, but we're comparing this median line, and we're comparing it and saying, is it closer to this side if it is and it's skewed left, or is it closer to this side it's skewed right? All right, so that is what you will need to do for the box and whisker, or the box plot. Remember, though, there might be other questions that it asks for this. It could possibly say, what is the median, or I'm sorry, what is the average? What is the mode? It could say anything for these because we learn all that different type of information, and it applies to all of these. Before I move on, there is one more thing I needed to discuss. I'll do that at the very end of the video, all right? So that way, if you skip around, you don't miss it. All right, so for this one, it says find the cost of 3 models of helicopters are shown. Find the weighted mean of the cost. So we're not used to seeing the information in a table like this. So if you wanted to, which it would take way too much time, you can write out 427,000 9 times, because that's how many we have of them. And then we can go ahead and we can write out 365,000 6 times, because that's how many we have of the sky coasters. And then you can write out the high flyer of 725,000 12 times. You can add up all those numbers, divide it by the total numbers we have, and you have your average. It's going to take you a really long time, and if you do that, you won't finish the test in time. So what we do, though, is when we add 427 together 9 times, it's the same as 9 times 427,000, which is then going to be equal to $3,843,000. Same thing, when we go ahead and add the 365,000 together 6 times, it's the same as multiplying them. And this is equal to 2,190,000. And then when we go ahead and when we add the 725,000 together 12 times, it's the same as multiplying them. And that will then give us 870 million. I'm sorry, 8,700,000. Right, so then if we were to add all of these together, that would give us a total as if we were to add every single one individually. And when we add them all together, that gives me 14,733,000. I don't know what is wrong with me right now reading these numbers. Right, then we would go ahead and we would divide it by the total number that we have. Well, we count them up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and so on. Or we can just go ahead and add up the total number that we sold. 9 plus 6 is 15. That would be adding the blue with the red. Plus 12 is 27. So then we would divide by the total number that we sold. And when we divide this, it gives us a final answer of $545,666.67. So that would be the weighted mean. That is on average what these helicopters were sold for, based on what this, if this was a company and they sold all these helicopters, on average they made $545,000 per helicopter sold. Although you may say, well, there's 725,000 sold here, and this is 300 and 400,000. There's more of the 700,000 sold, so that's why it's above the other two numbers. All right. If you understand that, or if you don't understand that, just please send me a message. I realize that's kind of this went on for this one a little bit too long, maybe. All right. The next question that you have to do is find the missing value. So it tells you the mean and median of set of 7 numbers is 12 for both. So once we know that we have the median, that means that our numbers had to have been arranged in order. So you do not have to write this x1, x2, x3, x4 like I'm doing now, but it just means so that they must have been written in order for us to go ahead and find the median. And the median is 12, so that means it's directly in the middle, which meant it had to be this digit here. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in 12 here. Right? Then I know that any number that is less than 12 has to go on the left of it. Any number that's greater than 12 has to go on the right. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the exact order. It just needs to be that the lesser numbers need to go on the left and so on for the greater ones. Right? So it tells me that the smallest number is 6. So I can go ahead and I can fill 6 here. It also tells me that there's 2 modes, and it's 9 and 14. So in order for it to be a mode, it had to appear more than once. Well, 9 has to go here and here because it needs to appear more than once. If we just put 9 here and not again, then it's not the mode. So 9 has to appear here, and it can't appear anywhere else. Otherwise, it's on the other side of 12, which it can't be because it must be less than. So that means that both of these had to have appeared twice. So 14 and 14 can get written next to here, and that leaves us with one unknown number, which is what we're trying to solve for, the largest number of the set. So to find the average, we need to add all of these numbers together, plus our unknown number. That will then give me 64, all of these numbers added together, plus the missing number x. And if we divide it by the total numbers we have, 7, that gives me my average, which they tell me is 12. So then to solve for this, I would go ahead and multiply each side by 7. So 64 plus x is then equal to 84. Subtract over the 64. And that means that x, that missing number, that largest number, must have been 20. All right, there's one more types of questions that we're going to do, and then there's one other thing I need to talk about on this video that I missed. All right, this is the other thing that you'll see in your test. I'm just going to briefly go through these. It says you need to classify them as categorical or so qualitative, if you want to write that, quantitative discrete, or quantitative continuous. So first thing you should be asking, are we dealing with like numbers that mean numbers here, or are we just dealing with categories? Democrats, Republicans, brown hair, black hair, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes. That's all categorical. Weight, height, GPA, number of times you're late to class. That's all numerical. So the number that right there tells us what this is, the number of goals scored each week by a hockey team. Well, that tells us it is going to be quantitative. And since we're doing goals scored, discrete or continuous, if it cannot be a decimal and it has to be a whole number, then it's discrete. If it can be a decimal, it's continuous. Well, you can't score a half of a goal for a hockey team, so that means it must be discrete, so it's quantitative and discrete. The weights of members of a basketball team, weights tells me it's going to be quantitative, and weights also means it's going to be continuous because you can weigh 175.4 pounds, 175.5 pounds. You can weigh a half of a pound. You don't have to just be 1 pound or the other. You can weigh in between. The most popular TV station. Well, it has nothing to do with numbers whatsoever. That's talking about, I don't know what TV stations they have here, but Fox, ABC, CNN, ESPN. So that is just simply categorical. The number, that tells me it's going to be quantitative. Of kittens in each litter, well, you can't have a half a kitten, so it's going to be quantitative and discrete. The number of bread rolls bought each week by a family, same thing. You can't buy half of a bread roll, so that would be quantitative and discrete. Pets owned by students in your class. So this, we're not talking about the different types of pets. They're not saying what kinds of pets, they're not saying how many pets owned by students in your class. That would be dogs, cats, I don't know, goats, whatever animals might be owned here. Camels, I don't know. But that would be categorical. It doesn't say the number of pets by each student. It says the pets. So that means what types of pets you have. All right, then the next one, the number of leaves on a rose. Well, the number, that tells us it's quantitative. And the number of leaves on a rose plant stem. The answer key says it's discrete here. If you said continuous, I would actually listen to an argument for that, because when you do look at rose plants, yes, you can only grow like a 1 leaf or 2 leaf or 3 leaf, but sometimes they grow deformed, and sometimes only a half a leaf is there or 3/4 of a leaf. So although this is discrete, I would accept continuous as well for this one, just because there are deformities when you're dealing with plants, or maybe an animal took a bite of one, and although it is a leaf, what you're seeing there might not be a full leaf. I'm not going to go through the rest of these. If you have any other questions on these, just send me a message. But I just went through enough there and all the different types. All right, the last thing I need to talk about in this video that I didn't do is if we talk about the modal class. So for this, if I said find the modal class, that is what class, so it's your mode, but for your class, that is what class had the highest frequency. So in this case, 2 classes had the highest frequency. So our modal class will be both 3 through 46 and 46 through 89. So make sure you understand that one as well. All right, that is it for this video.